The Drug Enforcement Administration says the latest fentanyl bust in Colorado resulted in the largest ever seizure of the drug in the state's history. Colorado Bureau of Investigation says that seizure of nearly 2 million counterfeit pills.
3:47 a.m., Minneapolis, Minnesota. Before sunrise, coordinated federal teams began moving across the city. Agents from the FBI, IC, and the Department of Health and Human Services executed simultaneous operations at 17 separate locations, launching what investigators would later classify as the most extensive welfare fraud and cartel money laundering case ever uncovered in the United States. The estimated financial impact would climb beyond $5 billion. Yet the figure at the center of this operation was not a trafficker caught at a border or a cartel lieutenant moving drugs on the street. It was Yasmin Khalid Omar, a 43-year-old daycare director who used licensed childcare facilities as a front, creating thousands of ghost children while funneling public funds into the Sinaloa cartel's financial pipeline. Over the next few minutes, you'll see how this network expanded, how deeply it damaged real families, and how close it came to becoming untouchable. What follows will force you to rethink how much trust we place in systems designed to protect the most vulnerable. If you're still watching, subscribe to the channel and decide for yourself how this was allowed to happen. 4:32 a.m., South Minneapolis. The air was cold, heavy, unmoving. A thin layer of fog clung to the streets as 3 unmarked vehicles rolled to a stop outside a converted warehouse listed in state records as a licensed childcare facility. On paper, everything about the place was flawless. Bright Futures Child Development Center had received more than $62 million in public subsidies in just over a year. According to official filings, it cared for nearly 1,100 children a day, employed dozens of staff members, and met every compliance requirement without delay. Payments arrived automatically. Audits were approved. No complaints were logged. No inspections raised concern. Inside the vehicles, agents reviewed the same clean spreadsheets again and again. Perfect attendance, perfect staffing ratios, perfect timing. That perfection was the first warning. As the lead agent stepped out into the quiet street, one detail stood out. At a facility supposedly operating around the clock, there were no cars in the lot, no lights behind the windows, no sign that a single child had arrived today or any day before. The electronic lock disengaged with a muted hiss and the door swung inward. Cold air spilled out, carrying the sterile scent of disinfectant layered over something unmistakable. Long absence. Inside, the lights were off. The building was silent. Shelves lined the main room, stacked with toys arranged in perfect symmetry. Blocks, books, plastic animals. Every item was untouched, sealed beneath a fine layer of dust that suggested weeks, not hours. In the nursery, 14 cribs stood against the wall, each with a clean mattress and neatly folded blanket. None showed signs of use. No creases, no marks, no warmth. Yet on the wall near the entrance hung official attendance sheets. Every line was filled. Names, times, signatures. Over 800 children recorded daily without a single gap. The room told one story. The paperwork told another. At that moment, the agents understood this wasn't neglect. It was design. Ask yourself, how many systems would you trust without ever seeing inside? Because what they were about to uncover next would prove this silence was carefully manufactured, and someone had been counting on it. 5:06 a.m., South Minneapolis. The lead agent moved toward the office at the rear of the building. The door was unlocked. Inside, the room was bare. No family photos, no calendars, no trace of daily work. Only a metal desk, a filing cabinet, and a single 3-ring binder, placed precisely at the center, as if it had been staged to appear ordinary. The binder contained enrollment records for more than 900 children. Every line was complete. Full names, dates of birth, home addresses, guardian details, identification numbers. The precision was unsettling. A field analyst began running random entries through federal databases. The first profile matched a person pronounced dead years earlier. The second belonged to an adult with no dependents. The third was tied to credentials flagged for identity theft in another state. Within minutes, the conclusion was unavoidable. These children did not exist. They were manufactured identities, assembled from stolen records, altered documents, and recycled data. Investigators estimated that nearly 3/4 of the listed children had no physical footprint anywhere in the country. This was not administrative failure, it was deliberate construction. Attention then shifted to the corner of the room. Bolted into the concrete floor sat a reinforced steel safe. When it was opened, stacks of tightly wrapped cash filled the interior. Bundle after bundle, counted and labeled. The preliminary total surpassed $41 million. On top of the cash lay sealed packages marked with a familiar insignia. At that moment, the investigation crossed a line. What began as welfare fraud became something far larger. A financial intake point designed to move public funds at scale. Early estimates showed more than $1.2 billion had flowed through this single location. As agents secured the building, alerts spread across command channels. This was only one node, and whatever had been built here was never meant to stop. It was designed to endure. 7:14 a.m., FBI Field Office, Minneapolis. By the time the first evidence crates arrived, the building had already shifted into containment mode. Screens lit up across the operations floor as analysts pulled financial records from seized accounts, licenses, and servers tied to the DAYCARE network. What appeared on the monitors did not resemble the finances of a child care operation. Deposits were massive and predictable, arriving in synchronized intervals. Withdrawals, however, followed a different logic: precise, repetitive, and carefully segmented. Over an 18-month period, more than 2,300 transactions were routed just below federal reporting thresholds. Viewed individually, they looked harmless. Viewed together, they exceeded $980 million. None of the money went toward rent, food, utilities, or staff. Instead, it flowed through a lattice of shell companies, consulting firms, logistics providers, nonprofit contractors, entities that existed only on paper. No employees, no offices, no tax filings. Each company served a single function: move money forward, then disappear. A seized laptop from the DAYCARE office became the next focal point. After encryption was bypassed, analysts uncovered a digital map labeled Daybreak. The diagram revealed the full architecture of the operation. At its center was Yasmin Khalid Omar. Around her radiated layers of intermediaries, account managers, document processors, and approval brokers embedded within state systems. One name appeared repeatedly: Abdi Roman Omar. Financial trails showed he authorized internal adjustments that accelerated subsidy approvals and suppressed verification flags. Records suggested that through these channels, processing times were reduced from weeks to hours. Over 1,400 approvals passed through the system without a single physical inspection. The deeper analysts dug, the clearer the design became. This was not theft hidden in shadows. It was theft optimized for automation. Algorithms replaced oversight. Speed replaced scrutiny. The faster the money moved, the less anyone questioned where it went. As the network diagram expanded, red markers spread across the state: Minneapolis, St. Paul, Bloomington, Rochester. Each marker represented a facility operating under the same blueprint. Early estimates placed the total financial exposure at well over $6.8 billion. The room fell quiet as one realization settled in. This was not a loophole being exploited. It was a system being used exactly as it had been built, only for a purpose no one had planned to see. 9:02 a.m., Minnesota Department of Human Services. As investigators widened the scope, the focus shifted away from shell companies and cash flows and towards something far more uncomfortable. The network had not survived because it was clever. It had survived because it was protected. Internal records revealed that at least 14 state caseworkers had direct access to approval systems tied to childcare licensing and subsidy distribution. Over a 3-year period, those same individuals approved more than 1,900 applications linked to the DAYCARE network, many within hours of submission. Site inspections were marked complete without visits. Risk flags were cleared without review. Audit requests were deferred indefinitely. Financial analysis showed a consistent pattern. Each cooperating employee received monthly deposits ranging from $6,000 to $18,000, routed through consulting contracts, speaking fees, or community outreach stipends. Individually, the payments appeared modest. Collectively, they exceeded $4.6 million. One caseworker's file stood out. She had authorized over 420 licenses in less than 18 months, a volume considered statistically impossible under normal conditions. Her bank history showed steady deposits from 3 shell entities connected to Yasmin Khaled Omar. No alarms had been triggered. No supervisor intervened. The corruption extended higher. Encrypted communications uncovered coordination with senior administrative officials who controlled staffing assignments and audit schedules. Oversight teams were quietly redirected away from the Twin Cities. Budget lines for compliance were reduced. New internal guidelines emphasized speed and efficiency over verification. One internal memo described the goal plainly: eliminate bottlenecks. There had been resistance. A veteran state auditor had submitted a report 2 years earlier citing abnormal payment velocity and identical enrollment patterns across multiple facilities. The report was never logged. 6 months later, she was reassigned to a non-operational role. Investigators later concluded the system had been reshaped to reward silence. Every safeguard still existed on paper. Every control box remained checked. But accountability had been hollowed out from within. By mid-morning, arrest warrants were being prepared, not just for operators, but for those who enabled them. The damage was no longer measured only in dollars. It was measured in trust. What had failed here was not a policy or a database. It was the assumption that no one would dare use the system exactly as it was designed, and push it past the point where anyone would question the outcome. 9:22 p.m., DEA Intelligence Center, Washington, D.C. By nightfall, the scope of the operation expanded beyond state lines. Analysts reviewing synchronized data feeds noticed repeating financial signatures, identical transaction timing, matching shell company structures, and the same approval shortcuts appearing in multiple jurisdictions. Minneapolis was not an outlier. It was a prototype. Within hours, linked activity surfaced across 6 additional states. Each location followed the same pattern: licensed childcare facilities with immaculate paperwork, automated payments processed at speed, and enrollment figures that defied demographic reality. Combined estimates suggested more than $19 billion had moved through parallel networks over 4 years, without triggering a single coordinated alarm. Shipping records added another layer. Seized manifests showed freight routes masked as agricultural transport, moving through regional hubs on fixed schedules. False maintenance notices shut down weigh stations at critical windows. Inspection teams were reassigned just long enough for convoys to pass. Analysts calculated monthly throughput exceeding 28 tons across multiple corridors, supported by the same financial rails uncovered in Minneapolis. A final encrypted file recovered from seized systems outlined what came next: expansion into 12 more states, new nonprofit fronts, real estate acquisitions near logistics junctions, legislative pressure points mapped by committee and calendar. The projected cash flow surpassed $45 billion annually, designed to be self-sustaining and difficult to unwind once embedded. What stunned investigators most was not the ambition, but the patience. This was infrastructure, not impulse. Built to blend in, built to persist. As the picture came into focus, one conclusion became unavoidable. The operation had not relied on force or fear. It relied on process, on speed, on the quiet confidence that automated systems would keep approving as long as forms were complete. Minneapolis had exposed the blueprint. The task ahead was larger than arrests or seizures. It was dismantling a model that thrived wherever verification lagged behind convenience. The question now wasn't how this happened. It was how close it came to becoming the new normal. By the end of that day, the accounts were frozen, the facilities shut down, and the architects of the scheme were in custody. But the damage did not disappear with the arrests. Tens of thousands of legitimate families lost access to real childcare. Honest providers closed their doors. Entire neighborhoods were left with fewer options than before. This operation didn't survive because no one saw it. It survived because the system rewarded speed over verification and silence over accountability. Automation replaced judgment, paperwork replaced presence, and trust was granted without being earned. The most dangerous part wasn't the money or the scale. It was how ordinary it all looked. Corruption rarely announces itself. It hides behind approvals, checkboxes, and good intentions. And by the time it's exposed, the cost is already paid by the people least able to afford it. So ask yourself, how many systems do we trust without ever looking inside? If you believe accountability matters, share your thoughts in the comments, support the channel, and stay with us as we continue bringing stories like this into the light.